In the last movie, we installed Ruby Gems, which is a package manager for Ruby libraries. And I told you at the time that Rails is actually a Ruby gem. So because we have Ruby Gems, it's going to make it really, really simple for us to install and manage different versions of Ruby on Rails. Let's take a look. Here I am in my terminal application, and I'm going to start out by just saying gem list, just so we see the full list of gems. And as I mentioned before, we actually already have a version of Rails installed here. Rails 2.3.5, 2.2.2, and 1.2.6. Now I just want to also show you that Rails is made up of several different libraries here. As you can see, we've got versions 2.3.5, 2.2.2, and a couple of different versions for the older ones that don't necessarily all match up that make up Rails. So Rails is not just this single gem, it's a gem that then depends on some of these other gems. When we go to install Rails, Ruby Gems is going to take care of all of those other gem dependencies for us, and it'll load everything that we need all at one time. The way that we load them in is just to simply say sudo gem, and remember I told you to put sudo in front of it so that all your gems get installed in a central repository, and then install Rails. That's all there is to it. So sudo gem install Rails, type in my password. That's my root password, the one that I use to log in with my Mac and also to install system software. And then it'll take a second while it goes out to the internet. It's going to look up what all of those code dependencies are that make up Rails, and then it's going to download them. Now the process is going to take about 5 minutes. So if you want to walk away for a bit and come back, this is a good place to do it. You could just pause the movie, let it do its installation, and then come back. Okay, now my installation's done. Yours should be too. Let's just look up here. It says installing documentation. We can ignore most of that. And any errors you get while installing the documentation, don't worry about. What's important here is the successfully installed. That's where it's actually doing the installation of the item itself. Don't worry about the RI documentation or anything. Now we can actually see that it's there by typing gem list again. And if we look up here, sure enough, we'll see that Rails, it has installed 3.0.0 now, or 3.0.1 or 2 or whatever version happens to be the newest that you just got when you did that command. Now, if I click up here and look, you can see that we also got Active Record 3.0.0 at the same time. It downloaded all the libraries that it needed to make sure that Rails works. Now, in addition to installing the gem, the installation process also installed a small Unix program that's called Rails, and we're going to be using it. So Rails is a library of Ruby code that can power our web applications, but it's also a small Unix program that helps us to interface with that library of code from the command line. So it's both things. So Rails-V will tell us what version of Rails we have installed currently. That's the version that will be accessed when we run this little Rails command line tool. And if I say which Rails, it'll tell me where that command line tool is located. Now that's not Rails, the whole library, the gems. That's in my gem repository. I've installed that as a gem. This little Rails program is able to access that library of code to do the things that I need it to do. So the last thing I just want to mention to you is that if you install a gem and then you want to uninstall it, there is an uninstall command, and you can use that gem help to find that and find out more information about how to uninstall, or cleanup, which will remove all old versions. Now you may not be able to clean up some of those versions that Apple installed for you, but the versions that you've installed since then, you definitely will be able to. And now we have Rails installed and we're ready to use it. The next thing we need to do is make sure that we have a database that we can access. So we'll see how to install MySQL in the next movie.